How was the first Soviet atomic bomb created? What are the secrets of the Semey nuclear test site? What remains in the fields after nuclear explosions? Learn about this in the new episode of Welcome to Kazakhstan project.
Once, access to this building was limited to a narrow circle of specialists. In the USSR, the nuclear project was guarded as the main military secret. But years have passed, and now everyone can learn most of the secrets of the Semey test site. This is Welcome to Kazakhstan project. My name is Zakirjan Mamlutov. Let's broaden our horizons. The Semey Nuclear Test Site Museum was founded back in 1972 on the basis of a military unit. Then, of course, an extremely narrow circle of people could admire its exhibits. Over time, the exposition grew. The focus shifted towards the educational function. Today, anyone can get into the Polygon Museum, although some documents still have to be collected. After all, the museum is located in the building of the National Nuclear Center, and this is quite serious. Of course, pictures of explosions or preparations for them cannot be reproduced otherwise than with the help of a model. There are several such panoramas and dioramas in the museum. You can imagine what exactly had been happening here for decades. And we're talking about at least 468 explosions of one or another yield. Here is a model of an underground explosion, which was carried out at the Degilen test site. The Degilen test site is a local granite formation with a total area of 300 square kilometers. 181 adits were built in the mountains. The tests were carried out in adits using from 1 to 20 kilotons, that is, medium and low yield explosions. Here is a model of the adit before and after the explosion. A nuclear charge was installed in the terminal box. To exclude the release of radioactive products, they used protective complexes and hermetic walls. A radiation extraction channel was installed in the center of the adit. Measuring equipment was installed along the shaft of the adit to measure the explosion's parameters. After testing, due to the high temperature and high pressure, an explosion cavity was formed. Even the granite stone melted. Various zones were formed: a melting zone, a crumple zone, a zone of intense fracturing, and a collapse column. Atmospheric precipitation fell into the adit. The adit's waters got polluted. The first two sections were destroyed. They were used as power elements. Hermetic walls were used to retain gas in the cavity. Therefore, there was no release of radioactive products to the surface. Everything was localized here in the terminal box.
Осталось 5 секунд. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The total yield of the nuclear charges tested at the polygon in the period from 1949 to 1963 alone is 2,500 times more than the yield of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It is only 45 kilometers from the city of Kurchatov to the experimental field. The radiation level in the city does not differ from the normal. The explosions have not been heard for a long time, but you still somehow start to look in a special way at the struggle between man and the laws of nature when you walk along the exposition.
сердце коллекции
The heart of the collection is the test console from which the explosions were controlled in the 50s. In the history of the polygon, it is the second console. The first one is located in the Russian city of Sarov, better known to us as Arzamas-16. The fact is that there is little information about the first years of the Semey nuclear test site development. All of it is classified and rests in the Russian archives.
Представлен программный аппарат управления АП-2 первого поколения 1955 года выпуска. Данный аппарат подключался за 10 минут.
Here is the AP2 control software unit of the first generation, made in 1955. It could be connected in 10 minutes. There are two keys. By turning both keys simultaneously, this device was activated. Start button, trigger button, time signal, and telephone set for 100 communication subscribers. That is, there was a direct link with the government. Stalin was on line number 1. In this case, we have connected the device. The entire system of the experimental field equipment is being prepared. At the experimental field, there were more than 1,000 different devices that were connected to this software unit by cable lines. Now pay attention to the experimental. The field had various equipment. When all these lamps light up, this indicates the readiness of the experimental field. The explosion countdown, the detonation of a nuclear charge. The explosion itself is shown on the picture in front of you. But if an emergency occurred, it was possible to turn off the unit by pressing the stop button.
Но в случае нештатной ситуации можно было отключить аппарат, нажав на кнопку «Стоп».
One of the most interesting locations within the walls of the museum is the office of academician Kurchatov himself. The atmosphere of the 50s of the last century has not gone anywhere from here. Everything is the same as in the days of the first tests, when the best minds of the country fought over the creation of atomic weapons. On Kurchatov's desk there is a book of comments and suggestions. You can leave your thoughts, for example, the wish that humanity will never know the horrors of nuclear war. A significant part of the exposition is devoted to the terrible consequences of nuclear tests. For example, you can look at the body parts of animals that have died in an explosion. This is not a sight for the faint of heart. The first test of atomic weapons in history took place in 1945 in the United States at the Alamogordo test site and was called Trinity. The sand at the site of the explosions was sintered into greenish minerals called trinitite. There are similar exhibits in Kurchatov, only here the explosion turned soil, not sand, into stone. Such eerie objects that remain in the epicenter of the explosion are called here Kharitonchiks, in honor of one of the atomic project's leaders, Joly. And this is precisely the granite stone that was turned into a porous fragment by an explosion. Superhuman strength and dire consequences. Most of the exhibits in the museum resemble objects from science fiction films. It seems that you can guess something familiar in them, but you can't figure it out at first glance. This is how the video camera that was used to shoot the explosions looked like: powerful, tough, stern. And this huge metal box is a photo camera. The radio station looks no less impressive. You understand that such equipment perhaps will survive an atomic explosion. For this, in fact, it was produced. With the acquisition of independence by Kazakhstan, the country deliberately abandoned the atomic arsenal inherited from the Soviet Union. In 1991, by the decree of the first president of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Elbasi Nursultan Nazarbayev, the Semey test site was closed. Public opinion and the Nevada Semey anti-nuclear movement played a significant role in making this decision.
Еще несколько десятков лет тому назад невозможно было...
A few decades ago, it was impossible to imagine that an ordinary tourist would be able to look at the exhibits related to atomic tests. Today is new time, borders are opening, and the threat of nuclear war has receded. And nowhere, like in the Semey test site museum, you can feel how great this threat was.